I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hey everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today I'm joined by Mr. Pete Turner. He has quite an introduction. His job was to leave American camps daily and interact with the locals to figure out what was going on. He did serve in the military, and the questions that he always had were we losing? Were we winning? Who did we need to know? Who was the good? Who was the bad? Or who was both good and bad? He took the experience of 70 plus months working in combat zones with over 1,000 missions outside the wire and became a podcast producer and host. He's interviewed incredible people from all walks of life, from people that have been recipients of Medal of Honor, Nobel Peace Prize winners, Pulitzer, Peabody, Emmy, Grammy, Gold Medal winners. I mean, he's interviewed every and all kinds of backgrounds that have won awards. His musical guests have sold 1.7 billion records. He's had hundreds of PhDs, hundreds of authors, and has delivered a whopping 1,300 episodes and counting. Has even uploaded more than that to his own talk show or to his own podcast, which can be a talk show. So nobody can talk modern war like he can. And so I'd love to give a huge welcome to Pete for coming on to the show. Thank you so much. And
Oh,
it sounds like you have the resume for this. So
yeah.
I'm so excited to hear your story.
It's my pleasure, man. I know what it takes to do these things. You just got done doing an interview. And I've done 2,000 episodes on my show now. I've got to update my bio apparently, but it's amazing these lives that we get to have and the people we get to talk to. And so it's an honor for me to talk to you. And it's an honor for me to talk to all of you out there as well. All of our time is valuable. But the fact that you're leaning on me to help fill this hour, well, I mean, I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you for coming on because, I told you this before, and I've told other people. I said I don't think anyone has it worse than veterans do, because I can't imagine what they must deal with, even if they worked there for a day, if they worked there for 2 hours. I can't imagine what they go through, and I have always enjoyed hearing stories from people that have been in combat that have worked on just like behind the scenes, whether it's on triage or anything. So I appreciate you for coming on. Um, for you to have like over 2,000 episodes of a podcast, that's insane. So tell me a little bit about how you became a podcaster and how you kind of found your voice in being a podcaster.
Yeah, it didn't start out there. I was trying to stop going back to combat. The money is great, the action is great, but I also was burning up my life and missing out. Like I didn't really get to raise my daughter, and so I was like, I got to stop, but I got to force myself to stay home. And even then, it was kind of perforated, but I was done going to combat, thankfully. And I wanted to tell stories. Every time you leave a post to go talk to locals, that's a story there. Every one of these reports that I would write was a story, and I wanted to tell those in a way that made sense. And it just turned out that someone I knew from my hometown had community radio show on Wednesdays, and he's like, "Come on the show. We'll have a great time. We'll talk." And we did. We had a great time, and I never left. He's like, "Come back whenever you want." And I'm like, "I'll be here next week. What else am I going to do?" So we started doing this radio show, and it started getting attention real fast, and within a short amount of time, over a year, not like in 2 days or anything, but they're the folks who ran the radio stations like, hey, you guys got to go. You guys are doing something bigger than this, and so go think it up in a bigger way, and we'll handle the community side. But you guys need to get bigger. And so we didn't know what to do, but what we did was we started a podcast, and right out of the gate, we knew enough people, and we were early enough that we were able to get all kinds of incredible guests, and we just continued to get great people coming on the show, and we learned and we learned and we learned. But that was sort of the path was we kind of stumbled into it. We turned out we didn't realize this because at the time it seemed like we were late, but we are way in front of that big podcast, wave that has happened and doesn't seem to stop. So that's how it got started was we just started doing it and figured it out and weren't afraid to make mistakes and try different things and as a result, gosh, I've had all these incredible experiences. Next week I'm going to drive down to San Diego and grab a show with a guy that I never knew I'd meet, and he's hyper famous in his field, and so maybe no one's ever heard of him, but in his world he's notable, and so I get to go sit down across from that person and have and you know how this is, have this incredible conversation.
Podcasting has such a unique way of coming around because I never imagined this be like a job because and it's so hard to get into this generation's head, especially people that are older than me, to think podcasting's not a job, it's a hobby. No. I mean, you can essentially turn any hobby into a paying job. It just takes a lot of hard work and dedication. So, I mean, and that's what I did. I mean, this started out as a hobby. Started out as me just doing solo episodes where I just talk shit about people,
Yeah,
and just talk crap on people, and like without giving out information, and was just telling my story. But then it got noticed to where I was put on this platform, and now that's you. Every guest that I've had on this show has come from this one platform. So I mean, and honestly, for you, one of the questions on here is like, how do you get to 1,000 plus episodes? And I feel like I could answer it for you. It's like if you ran like a show that was a military, you could have 10,000 episodes worth of content because every military person, every man, woman, anyone that's worked on the combat field has a story.
yeah,
Each one could tell you a different story, and you'd have such a compelling episode. You could,
yeah.
you might hear some repeats in there, but there'll be some kind of twist in there of a different story that will make that episode unique. So, but in your own words, how do you get to 1,000 plus episodes from your experience?
It's when we get in the podcast, I'm speaking specifically about podcasting, but this applies to a lot of different disciplines. If you want to get to 1,000, you have to be able to do one, and then two, and then three. And that just sounds silly, but if you're going to walk 24 miles, you have to do it one step at a time. And if you get too far in front of that, it gets a little harder. You start to think a little bigger. You get a little distracted. And so, how do you become whatever it's going to be? Are you going to become a black belt? Well, you got to go to the dojo, and you got to go get your head kicked in for 10 years or 5 years or however long it takes to get a black belt in that discipline. And so that's the same thing is you get a black belt in podcasting by podcasting. And if you aren't into it, you're going to find out. You're going to find out what you're willing to do. And if you're willing to continue to go to the dojo or whatever it is to write that screenplay, and you just add pages every day, you'll figure out like, oh yeah, I am a screenwriter. Oh yeah, I am a karate man. Oh yeah, I am a podcaster. But the only way to get to 1,000 is to start and then just keep going and make all kinds of mistakes. Like if we use jiu-jitsu, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu as an example, if you aren't choked out 10,000 times, you can't get a black belt. Like you have to tap a whole bunch to learn how to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like that's just how it is. So podcasting is no different. It's a discipline. And you're right about the hobby part. Like, yes, it might appear like a hobby, but I'm treating this like a career because I'm building
Mhm.
something and no one else can see it but you, but like if you have that thing that allows you to get out there and do 1,000, maybe even 50. 50 is a miracle. If you can do that, well, then you can repeat that. And you see progress along the way. Okay, great. I'm building something. Yes, you see it as a hobby and defined accurately. It is a hobby, right? Like unless you're making a significant amount of money, but
Mm-hmm.
you also have to build an audience at the same time, and you have to treat those things professionally. So even if it's a hobby, from someone else, you're like, no, I'm treating this like a actual profession, and I'm going to be deliberate about things, and I'll do all the things that are required. That's how you get to 1,000. Is you realize that you can do 10, 100, and all of a sudden 100 becomes nothing. That's just an inevitable reality down the road. How long does it take? Does it take you 100 months? Does it take you 100 weeks? Does it take you 100 days? I mean, depending on how prolific you are, you could have 100 episodes in 100 days. And that it wouldn't, frankly, be all that hard to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You gave good advice there. I may look like I've only posted like 30, 40 episodes, but I have like 60, 70 on back file, like
Right.
that have been recorded. That's how many I have recorded, hence why I'm a little behind. But,
Hmm.
I have those episodes backed up to where it adds up to I've done over 100 interviews. I have over 100, so I have in total like hundreds plus episodes ready to be that have either been posted or need to be posted. So I mean, it you can get those episodes created quick. It and some people take a long time, and that's okay because everyone works at their own pace. You have to kind of set a goal, and I saw this as like statistic one time where it says majority of the people that have a podcast, majority of them don't ever get past one episode. That it's rare for people to get past one episode
Right.
because I
Yeah.
think people sometimes get into the podcasting and they say, "Oh, this is easy. This is nothing to it." It's like,
Yeah.
blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
But deep down, they see like, "Oh, this is not easy. This is hard as crap." And it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just like so I think they don't realize how difficult it is. So
Yeah.
they stop after that one episode because they're like, okay, that's too hard. That's too much work. Not doing it again. And that's why there's so many podcasts out there that might have just one, two, maybe three episodes, and they've not posted since. So
Yeah.
it's very rare for you to find podcasts that have reached 10, and it's even rare to see people that have reached 1,000 plus and even 2,000 plus. That's super rare. That
Right.
kind of just shows you that they are really dedicated to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it,
That's true. And then the thing I would add to that is if you aren't imbued with that desire to do the work that it takes, then you have to hire it or not have a podcast, right? And so not having a podcast is easier. But let's say that you run a company or you're a consultant or you're a business yourself, whatever it is, then you hire that help. You hire someone like me because if you hire me, production is not going to be the problem. It's going to be you. Like, can you come up with the new idea? Can you? And like, do you need me to book guests? Okay, great, I'll do that. But now you're paying me to be a professional to give you a professional podcast, and that's really a fun way to look at this. So if you're I don't know, let's say you're a thought leading lawyer, and you're like, I need to have a podcast. Well, if you're busy lawyering and being a thought leader, you should shop out a lot of that production so that you don't waste your time doing stuff that you don't need to do. And I think a lot of people are now realizing that. So you don't, if you are struggling with, I don't seem to have the reliable ability to go and do episode next, hire it, hire it. And if it's worth your time and money, if you can see a future and it costs this much money, well, that's a cost for, just call it marketing, and just go, I'm going to turn these, I don't know, let's say you did 100 hours of content in a year. That's a pretty big amount. But you
mm,
can take that and turn that into other products and products off of that and products off of that. And all of a sudden, you've built this mountain of products for a fairly small amount of money. I mean, if it was $12,000 that you spent for that, it's easy to spend $12,000 on marketing, super easy. But in this case, you've got, I don't know, let's say you only did 500 hours. You could have a pile of content you could use for years if you do it in evergreen fashion. And so
mm-hmm,
even if you aren't the person who can do like what Noah and I can do, you hire Noah, you hire Pete, and you go, I just help me crank out episodes like you do. And then I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to help you, because you have the desire and the money. You just don't have the tools to be a producer. And that's fine. Not everybody has that. Not everybody needs that. That's why people like Noah and I exist.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of hard work to do what we do. And most people, I think, go into it and say, "What's so hard? You just talk into a microphone." Well, no, because there's a lot of post-production to it as well.
Sure.
If you're like me and Pete, I don't know how, I'm pretty sure for if you've done 2,000 episodes now and have over, you've probably got like a team probably now, unless it's all one man show.
I pretty much do everything myself. I tap my head, I rub my belly, I bang my knees together to do the symbol, and I hop. I do it. I'm a one man band. I've hired people though. It depends on what I'm doing. So what I've done is leaned out my machine, and I understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And I change my mind all the time on what I'm going to do, and I'll apply resources in different areas. I've had a team before. But for me, I stopped publishing on podcast channels because there was no real value for that. It was nice. It felt good. It felt good to see the numbers of how many people would listen, but they
Mhm.
didn't do anything. I couldn't reliably bring them over to me. I couldn't get them to engage, even with like comments and stuff. So I'm like, hey, why am I spending all this time and money talking to people who aren't talking back? And so I just stopped. And like anybody who wants to find me can find me. I'm on YouTube. I'm not hard to find. Yeah, I'm on X. I'm not hard to find. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. And so it's easy to find my show, but I'm going to make you come to where it benefits me. And if you care enough about it, great. Because I don't need a lot more than that from people. But the podcast side, and look, a terrible business partner. They don't do anything to benefit me. I don't need anybody else between me and the audience. I'm going to create something that I think is great, that interests me. And people who like the things that I like, even if they don't like all of them, they're going to like my show. And so they're going to come, they're going to listen, and someone all the time finds an old episode like, oh my God, this is the greatest episode. Thank you so much for, and the show was 10 years, 8 years old, and they still
Mhm.
spin all the time. So I've leaned it down to where I can manage most of the work myself. Now, if I need some more capacity, I can always hire it, but I
Mhm.
spend that money on other things or that capacity on other things, and that formula has worked for me. It won't work for somebody else, but it worked for me.
Yeah, and I do like two other podcasts as well. And it's hard work to, do one, but to do three, which I focused my priority in this podcast, and those other two have been kind of like, I'll get to them when I need to.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
like they've been put like to the side because this show's done really well, and people have really gravitated towards this show. But I'm like Pete. Everything I do is one man show. I do everything. I do the editing, the recording, the
Yeah.
filming, the produce, the I do. I mean, anything that makes a podcast, I do everything. I mean, I did the artwork for it, which I use the AI for it because I'm not the creative person. I can better draw a stick man, but it's everything's been like a one man show. Some people can do that, some
Sure.
people can't. And I have to give you high props. I mean, to be able to do 2,000 plus episodes all one man show, pretty impressive. Because usually by 500 episodes, people are like, okay, I need a team. I need a whole production crew. And even by like 2,000, they're like, have studios rented out. They have two people working behind the scenes. I mean, have this whole
Yeah.
crew to pay them. But for you to be still 2,000 plus episodes and have everything done yourself, that's really impressive. And I think a lot of people could see a lot of huge inspiration in that.
Yeah, and just to be fair, like I've had my co-founder John did a lot of work early on. It's my show now, right? But and I
Mhm.
have hired help in the past, but I
Yeah.
have also figured out how to make my machine efficient. But you can't look at me and go, I want to be like Pete because it took a long time. Now, I can get you there faster than it took me because I've learned it all now. But like I always liken it to bodybuilding. Like if you see me in the gym and I'm just like all big and my muscles look great, I want to be like Pete. You can't. You can't be like me. You got to be like you. You got to figure out what it takes for you to get there. And maybe you're not a bodybuilder. Maybe you're a swimmer. And so that's what you need to go do and become that person. There's a lot of ways to do a show. One of the things that I do is I go remote. I put a 3 camera shoot in a backpack and I go. I'll get on an airplane. I go where not every time, but throughout the year, I'll do it a bunch of times. That's what I'll do next Wednesday when I go to San Diego, and I'll set up a 2 or 3 camera shoot and shoot video for my show. But I don't spend any time in post because I don't think it matters. And if I want to do something special, then I'll lean on that production skill of doing a lot of post production. But for me and what I do, it's better to ring the bell, ding ding, and get another episode in and make another contact than it is to spend 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 hours in post trying to make something more perfect. I'm a big believer in production over perfection. But there are times when I do very nice things and I'm like, this is going to be a special one. I'm going to put time into this. But they're kind of set pieces that are there for a different purpose than the standard show, which is just me just doing my workout, just doing a patrol report. So a lot of ways to do this stuff, and there's a lot of different business models. There's a lot of people that have figured out in totally different ways than me. So don't feel limited to what I say, but like you said, it is work, and it is hard work, and it's tedious at times. Populating fields, clicking
Hmm.
radio buttons, and all the things. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm doing this right now. Tick, tick, tick. And I force myself to do it. I used to publish across all these different platforms back before you could batch publish. And it would take me, I don't know, 2 hours to publish my show in all these places. Well, I don't do that anymore because I don't find value in that. I try to only do what's valuable, but I always look for what's valuable. It's so that the show is always creating value and finding new ways to do that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I can teach you stuff, but I'll teach you stuff that I have 100% know. I won't teach you what I don't know. So
Yeah,
if it's like a question, if you ask me a question, I don't know what it is, don't get mad at me for like that question because someone else out there that's more professional than I am, because I've been doing this since February. I've been only
mm,
posting since February. So I mean, I don't have like Pete's years of expertise. I mean, you can't really post 2,000 episodes within 6 months. I mean, if you do, then
good
each
grief.
episode must be about
Why?
30
Why would you do
seconds.
it? It's like it'd be crazy.
Each
2006 months, yeah, that'd be nuts.
each episode must have to be like 30 seconds or something, or like two
Right. Yeah.
seconds, and you publish like three
Yeah.
at one time. I don't know how you do it, but it's
Yeah.
someone out there that has done that. I think some podcasts do that where they post like 5, 10 a day,
Sure.
but it's like every day. And I'm like, now I post about 5 or 10 a week, but I don't post that every day. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot of learning involved, and
Mm.
it's, but I will say it's fun. But tedious part was I remember I recorded a show where I did like where I talked about my school experience, and it's the longest episode, but I've cut that down a lot. It's fun recording and everything. You can talk for as long as you want to, but then when you go online and then you have to edit a 3 hour episode, you're like, oh, like you just want to take a bullet. Honestly, you
I
want to
know.
take a bullet
It's
because
so much.
it's hard to sit there for 3 hours or even break it up, having to hear yourself talk for 3 hours. It's hard. And I think a lot of people don't like podcasting because you get tired of your voice. That was my thing at first. I've gotten real tired of it. I've gotten to the point where I just don't care how I sound. If I sound nasally, it's just going to stay like that. If I have a voice crack, it's just going to stay in there. It's like, I'm not going to go
Yeah.
back and re record. So, I mean, you get sick of your voice real quick and it kind of just becomes white noise, kind of to the point where you kind of start liking how you sound. It's, it's weird, but it's just one of those things. But I think what interested me about you when I read your intro, it's like you had like all these people on your show, and it's like, where in the world have you had all these people? So it's like, what really is astonishing to me is like, in total, your musical guests have sold like a cumulative like 1.7 billion records that have
Crazy.
been like from just all the musical guests that you've had. That's what it adds up to. So I'm kind of curious, what have been some interesting guests that you've had on your show, or just have some interesting stories from that?
Yeah. There's a lot of really great ones. We had Andy Summers from the Police on my show, and that used to mean something to a lot of people, probably less so now, but the Police one of the greatest bands of all time. And, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and everybody knows Sting. So yeah, to have anyone from the Police on the show was great. And we went to his house and we had great stories, John and I, about that because when we went to Andy's studio he's got a studio near the beach in LA. And we got there and rang the doorbell, nobody answered, rang the doorbell, nobody answered. We were there at the right time. And then finally someone like comes on the intercom, we're like, we're here to interview Andy. And no, you're not. I'm like, no, we really have an appointment. I swear to God, I can show you. And I had to come out, I had to show the guy my email and everything. And he's like, all right, I knew it was you guys, but like he gave us a hard time. All that's part of the
Hmm.
adventure because we didn't know it was going to happen. It was great. We've had so many of these kind of moments where we've interviewed people. And again, like these are people who are titans in the industry. We interviewed a lady named Allie Willis. She's not with us anymore, but she's a wonder. And going to her house, her house is so incredible, so busy, and she's an artist's artist, like just art for art's sake, everywhere. And she has written so many gigantic songs. She's in the Songwriter Hall of Fame. And maybe a lot of people don't know her name, but she's in the Songwriter Hall of Fame, man. Right? So she's huge. So we were so overwhelmed with all of the input that she surrounds you with, her personality and everything else. And all of a sudden I look and I go, hey, John, look at that wall behind you. And it's an enormous wall. It's like 18 feet long, 10 feet high, and it's all platinum and gold records. And there's so much going on in our house, you can't even see it. And you realize the impact of what this lady has had in our lives with her song. Every single person who's ever listened to the radio from within 5 minutes or watched a movie has heard her music because her songs are some of the most famous songs of all time. I hear an Allie Willis song every single day. She wrote the theme song to the show Friends. And so anybody who has listened to a Friends episode, which is a lot of people,
Hmm.
and just to have her spend time with us and talk about the world the way she saw it. It was great. And the thing is because we were at her house, we were her guests in her home. And so she treated us like guests and it was a
Hmm.
wonderful thing. So it was less about work for her and for us because of the dynamic that we can create with the Break It Down show. And I encourage anybody to think outside the box. Maybe you don't want to go to someone's house. Maybe they don't want you to come to their house. Whatever. Okay, fine. But find ways to make this something bigger than work, bigger than a conversation. When we had Andy Summers on, and Andy's not the greatest interview in the world. Like he's a hard interview, right? But we never brought up the police. I mean, maybe at some point one of the three of us did, him or ourselves, but we didn't introduce him as a member of the police because he was that 30 years ago when we had him on the show. He doesn't want to talk about that. We certainly aren't going to ask him, when are the police getting back together? We're not doing that. We're going to let him talk about where he's at now because that's what his job is to be an artist and to be in front of us and to show us things about us that are a little bit uncomfortable. That's the kind of artist he is. And it's his job to be way out there. And it's our job to see him and go, ah, man, I can't believe what you're doing. It's incredible. And so those are the lessons you learn about the people who are artists for artists' sake. They have this incredible vision. And sometimes it's uncomfortable because it doesn't seem like it fits into the real world. But here they are part of it, and they're leading us towards these other things that are in the real world. So the musicians are just great, and that's just two. That's just two. There's so many of them, and they have these are seasoned people that have thought deeply and figured a lot of things out in ways that most of us don't have time to do. And I just love those episodes when they really dig in and give me something incredible.
You've had like all these guests come on here and have had great experiences, but I always have to ask, when it comes to the celebrities on here, you kind of hear all these horror stories. Has there been guests that you've had on your show that you've had like bad encounters with that are like, uh, and I will say you can name them because I will bleep their name out because I don't want lawsuit come to you and I don't want lawsuit come to me. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you're more than welcome to share it. I will bleep their name out. So the only person that
yeah.
will know their name is me. So,
Yeah. Well,
but have
I
you
mean,
had any bad
I wouldn't say their
experiences?
names because I don't have that many experiences like that. Look, if you do 2,000 episodes, you're going to have a bunch of bad ones. And the
Mm-hmm.
honest to God truth is that I'm the reason for most of the bad ones. Even if a guest doesn't go off, that's me. That's on
Uh-huh.
me, right? Like, let's say you're on my
Uh-huh.
show and I don't do the best job, but I don't crack you open and get you to talk openly and give me something great, right? That's not you. That's me. That's my job. And so that's the way I handle all of this. Like when someone who doesn't do a lot of this stuff is like, I'm kind of nervous. What if this happens? And I just say to all of that belongs to me. That's my job. I've done thousands of these things. I'm going to take care of you. And I'm going to make sure that you're all right. And my job is to make you shine. If we're not going to do it this day because you don't feel well, your voice is a little croaky, hey, let's wait. I'm the boss. I know what to do. We're just going to wait. And whatever happens next is going to be you at your best. And I've had people thank me for that and say, "Oh my God, thank you. I was so worried about that." Or postponing a show. Like earlier today, I was driving from the top of the state of California to the bottom, and I just had to push all the things during the day. I thought about getting a hold of you and saying, "Hey, I'm just too worn out," right? But I feel good enough to do it. All of that stuff is just it doesn't matter, right? Because I'm going to be able to get those other shows in, right? One of them was my show, one of them was somebody else's show. We'll just whip it around and we'll get it all figured out. That's the main thing. So I worry less about whether or not a guest got a little drunk or, you know, um, one of the things with celebrities that you have to understand is this is work to them. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just get the guy, like, I just don't want to go to work today. Like, and that's how they are. And they get to be like that, right? It's on me to make sure that they know, hey, this doesn't work. And so I will say a name for one. This isn't a bad one, but it's indicative of how it can be. So we were going to have the comedian on the show and he didn't show up. And I was like, well, so I'm getting hold in the background, I'm getting a hold of his PR person. And like, oh shoot, okay, hang on. And so they raise him. So like minutes into the show, 20 minutes into way late into the show, he shows up, right? So it's me, John, and this is more funny. He's a funny guy. And so he's so unprepared, he got out of bed to do this show, right? And he's got a robe on. And so I see how it is. So John vamps for me. He covers the space and he's talking. I come back, I've taken my shirt off, I put my robe on, and we just make a big joke out of it. Because sometimes you forget something. Sometimes you slide past a thing and you're like, oh no, and you want to be a pro. We could have been negative about that, but we turned it into a funny joke. And then I did the show in my robe and did it in his robe, and we had a great time. But I don't I know that some shows are not going to go perfectly. I know that sometimes the technology is going to fail me. Sometimes honestly, I'm going to fail me more than anybody else because it's my job to make sure I have the equipment, the backup equipment that I've prepared, that I've eliminated in my kit, all of the problems that I can so that the problems are reduced, but it's still on me. So that's what I would say to the negativity is just be a goddamn producer and say, this is my production. Here's what we're going to do. You know what? Here's another thing I've done. I've had it to be where like I wasn't happy with the way the show was going for whatever reason. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? We're going to stop because this isn't going the way that I want it to go for you. So we're just going to either reschedule or cancel, whatever it was going to be. And I think maybe one time we canceled and didn't go back. But for the most part, that isn't what happens. Most part, your heart is opened up and you have these wonderful experiences. And so when I think about the negative things, um, they're so irrelevant compared to the pile of wonders that we had. I'd forgotten all about the thing until we started talking about this, and I'd forgotten all about the one that I went, hey, you know what? This isn't going as good as you want it to go. Let's postpone this. Um, and that's okay. That's okay. I've had shows that I've screwed up, and the guest is like, "I'm never coming on your show again." Hey, I deserve that. I screwed something up, and they get to say no thanks. They get to pick where they want to spend their time. That's not the norm, obviously, but these things happen and they break your heart. I gotta say this. It breaks your heart, breaks my heart when a show doesn't go well. I was like, oh no. And I've quit so many times. So I'm like, I just can't take any more of this, whether it was equipment, technology, me, the person, whatever it is. And it just because you want to do such a great job. I've learned to be less precious and just say, that's just fine. Look, almost some percentage of shows is not going to go well. 1%, 5%, something like that. And you can constantly reduce that, but there's always new variables. Wires go bad, batteries don't charge. Well, all kinds of things can happen. And so you sit down, you get ready to go, and you rock the house, and that's the norm most of the time. But sometimes the house doesn't want to be rocked, and you just go, you know what, today's not the day. And you reload and you go again. Some days you get choked out by the sensei. Some days you get choked out by the white belt, and you're like, God dang it, I got choked out by a white belt. But you just keep going because what matters is this right now, what we're doing.
Yeah, I've had days where I've had like I haven't had any bad like the okay, the other day I remember I had a guest on here that we were doing an interview and I had done Zoom like how we're doing. This is how I do all my virtual interviews because everyone that I do interviews with does not live in the state of Alabama and they especially don't live in a small farm town where I'm from. So most 99 or all of my interviews have been virtual. So when it
Yeah.
comes to virtual, you're going to have problems come from that. It can be internet decides it doesn't want to work, your computer decides doesn't want to work for the day, software has problems, the app decides that it wants to update and everything. So you have like these moments of you're just done. It's one of those things where you want to take a hammer and smash the crap out of your laptop or smash the crap
Yeah.
out of your thing
I've been there.
and you want to smash everything up and go on to this rampage. But there was one time where I've had this microphone's a pretty good microphone. I've not had one problem with it. And then recently, there was an interview that I had done. Were on Zoom and he could not hear me. And I don't know if it was a problem on his end or if it was just some kind of problem on my end that I had no problem of. I'd unplugged it, plugged it back in, turned it off. I mean, disconnected everything like I had done before. And I said, I don't know what's wrong. And so it was just like a huge baffling thing. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong on my end. I was like,
Yeah.
everything's plugged in, everything's connected. I, what's the problem? I was like, so we went to because we use them because that's another thing.
Sure.
I've only been on there for guests. I've never done it as a host. That was so confusing. I'm not using again. If you have, I'll be on there as a guest because all I have to do is just sign in and click a button. I don't have to do
Yeah.
anything. But if you have to rely on me to host a show on there, no, don't
Yeah.
don't have don't have hopes for it. But that was one thing where it's like you're going to have moments and I'm like, unlike you, I've not had a bad experience when it comes to guests, when it comes to recording. I have had, though, people that have rescheduled last minute or I've had no shows. And I've even not shown up because I've maybe overslept or something got a hold of me. So I'm like you, I'm not perfect in any other way. And I've made mistakes on this show. I've not shown up because something that's in my mind thought, oh, I don't have an interview for today, and which in
Yep.
reality I did. So, you know, every podcast host is not going to be 100% on it. There are going to be days where we're going to screw up, the guest
Yep.
screws up, or we both screw up. That's just part of learning the show, and I think that's what makes the show an episode unique. You know,
Yeah.
it makes it more funny to me if like I just interviewed someone the other day, and it was such a funny thing. They were brother and sister. One was a ex-flight attendant that used to fly celebrities across the country as a just like a personal flight attendant on these private jets. And her brother was so funny because we were just talking before we started. Like I usually always talk to my guests before we record just to kind of open them up a little bit and kind of get a flow and see how they are. And they were funny from the start. Well, when you record on Zoom, I don't know behind the scenes stuff. There's an electronic thing that kind of is like Siri that kind of activates and says recording in progress or something like that. Well,
Yeah.
he actually said something right when I was introducing the show, and I got tickled during it because I thought, oh, that's 100% gonna be in the show when I go to edit it. And I thought
Sure.
I'm keeping that in because it was funny. It was just funny moment where I'm introducing myself and he's like, she's interested, and he was like, oh, and I just got tickled, and so I kept it in, and it was like the most funny intros. I mean, I'm like, you have to find humor in it, 100%. So, but
Absolutely.
what's a lot of people when they do podcasting, do make mistakes, but what are some common mistakes that podcasters generally make?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the problems is we overestimate the value that we've put into our show. So you have to understand how your show creates value and what value you intend, and are you getting your intended value created? And so understanding the value and just asking these questions like, is what I'm doing valuable? What's the guest getting from it? What's the audience getting from it? What am I getting from it? What does the show get from it? And how do I create more value? If you don't create value, like so, one of the first questions you always hear when someone starts is, "How do I monetize?" Well, you got to be able to listen to your voice and stand it. Like that's my favorite one. Like I
Mm,
can't stand to hear myself talk. Like okay, well, why does anybody else want to take it then if you don't? And the thing is like you've commented on your voice a couple of times. I think your voice is fine, but if I was
mm,
going to coach you professionally, I'd say let's find a better voice for you. Let's develop it so that you're more comfortable with it. So you have no hang up about your voice. Or let's just say that that's your voice and learn how to be like, hey, my voice is fine. You're a little nasally, you're a little high up in your neck. Okay, fine. Make can you put your voice down in your chest like this? Or do you want to really are you excited to be talking? My voice moves all over the place when I'm talking.
yeah.
So these are the things that like you have to put into your show if you're going to be professional. And we're
Mm,
using voice as an example, and there's no knock on your voice at all, right? There's all kinds of people that sound all kinds of different ways. So
mm,
maybe you slow down your cadence. Maybe you focus
mm,
and you develop a producer's ear where you listen to where you're at. But people, these things are hard. These things are hard to do, and they're hard to struggle. Like you could absolutely develop a stage voice that is still genuine, that is still you, but it's your professional voice. And you would work on how you
mhm,
sit, you'd work on how you move your hands, you work on your diaphragm control and where your voice is in your chest or your neck, right? You could work on that and still be you, but that's a professional skill. For the most
mm,
part, I look directly in the camera. I don't look down here like you like this because this is not appealing. This is terrible looking, right? And so why am I doing that? These are the things that like you can offer somebody and you can say, hey, here's a way to make your show just a little bit better. Just round an edge off, right? Like take down this edge or spray paint this little corner right here. But that takes the ability to withstand some critique. And some of that you can ignore. I'm going to ignore that. I don't care. I'm going to be someone that looks at my screen like this instead of looking at the camera, looking at the audience. Okay, great. I mean, we all get to do it how we want to do it. And there's all kinds of ways to do it right and wrong, and they're all the same damn way. So
mm,
we have to find the things that matter. And that means work. So how do you create value? How do you improve your show? How do you give something back to your guest? Right. And not just do a plug, like really like when I do a plug, I have an author on, I'll grab their book. Let me grab a book. Here's a book right here. Actually, this lady's been on the show, so I'll grab her book. Okay. So I'll say, here's the book, right? And I read it, and I'll actually read the book, and I'll say, listen, this book was awesome. I loved it. It's about Nazis and Dr. Mengele and how he hid in Brazil. And you know what I always say? Buy two, buddy read. Get two of these because a book is a great gift. And then the author doesn't always hear that from anybody. I'm really trying to sell the book. And I'll mention it
mhm,
several times. So I don't just say, hey, make sure you get the book. There's the link below. Sometimes it's all I do, right? But
yeah.
my audience also understands that, like, hey, they all get it, right? But for the most part,
Mm,
if I've got the book, I hold it up, I make sure I know where it's got to be on the screen, and I talk about the book and I put the link on there. And I take care of all that for the person. So they see me doing that and I create the value with them so that when I come back to them and say, hey, do you want to come back on? Who else do you know? And they're like, oh, my uncle is so and so. I bet he'd be great. And you're like, your uncle is so and so? Oh my God, I'd love to have that person on the show. And now you have this another person. And so all of this is about being able to withstand critique of yourself, critique of your show, and being able to say, yes, that's important to me. No, that's not. And just kind of shop the idea of value and where it is. And so when I think when shows struggle, it's because there's too much of our ego in the show. You have to have some ego in the show, right? Because it's a representation
mhm,
of you. But also you can't have so much that you can't improve. You can't take counsel, Like I can tell you five things about your show right now that I would say you might want to improve these things. And if you did none of them, it wouldn't matter. But you have to be able to say, you know what, I hadn't thought about that. My buddy Eric Hunley, he has a great show, all kinds, and I'll talk to him, and he'll give me a bunch of very sound advice. I do none of it. He told me on X to do some threads because those threaded, multi-tweet posts, they do really well. So I did one finally, after like weeks after he told me to do it, and it did nothing. And so, do I do another one, or
mhm,
do I not even bother with that? I don't know. Do I care about that? Do I care about being big on X? You know what? Actually, I kind of don't. But maybe I'll mess with that. And Eric's advice is great. It's great advice. He had a lot of success with that. I didn't in the one time that I tried. If I did 100 of those things, would I get
Right.
better at it? Would I get better response? Yeah, probably. And maybe that would solve some of my problem on X of discoverability, and my subscribers would go up, and maybe I could monetize if I just tried 100 of those things, right? But I haven't convinced myself that I'm going to do that. But should I? Yeah, probably. I probably should, right? So here I am giving the very same advice that I struggled to take for myself.
Yeah, everyone's going to be different when it comes to podcasting because everyone's going to have a different flow.
Right.
Everyone has a different, and that's the thing about podcasting is that it's unique when it comes to what you want to talk about. I took a podcasting class when I went to college. I've not really told this story much on here because I've not had many podcasters like talk about podcasting, so I've not had a chance to tell story as much. I'll kind of reiterate it for if you're new. Um, the summed up version. I went to Auburn and they were offering a podcasting class the next fall. We had a guy come talk to us about a new podcasting class, and I said I want to be first one in the class to get in there because I was interested in podcast and got in. And one of the assignments that we did was a podcast pitch. We had to pitch an idea to the class and get everyone's opinions. It was one of those moments where some people are going, let's say you have a obsession with technology and you want to make a podcast that's based on technology, whether it's computers, phones, tablets, just anything technological. You could have one person here that says, yes, I think that would be a great idea, run with it, do it. And then here's another person on this side that might say that's the worst idea, no one's ever going to listen to it, that's a waste of time. It's one of those moments where you don't listen to the bad review. You don't listen to the good review.
Yeah.
It's your own decision at the end of the day. If you want to
Yeah.
make a podcast on technology, make one. I mean, who cares what other people say? I had a lot of critiques when I think I pitched this show idea, and I think I had pitched it. I pitched another one, but I think I might have pitched Lethal Venom as well, which it was still untitled at the time. But I think I still pitched it, and I got mixed reviews from it. Some people liked the idea, some didn't. But at the end of the day, I said, you know what? It's my decision. If I want to do it this way, I want to do it this way. You can't. People can tell you that otherwise. Now, if people give you advice, there's nothing wrong with trying it. But it's really your show at the end of the day. It
Yeah, that's right.
don't. I wouldn't let people change. So if you got like a person that comes on saying, I don't really like the flow of your interview style. I think you need to have it where it's a mixed bag of like you talking, the guest talking. It's your show. If you like to where you do 60% of the talking and they do 40% of the talking, that's their show. That's your
Yeah.
show. That's the flow that you like to give. That's the best. That's how you roll. Don't let
Yeah.
people try to change the show to fit their style because
Right.
everyone's going to have a different opinion about just the show. I'm pretty sure I have so many listeners, and I'm pretty sure you have hundreds and thousands of listeners on that show that um, they all have a different opinion about how you could change.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then
I
you
don't have hundreds
change
of
it.
thousands, by the way. I've had a lot. My show has grown, ebbed and flowed over the years. But you're right. And so the thing you're talking about with the decisions you make and the rate of or the ratio of you and me talking, really it is us. Like we're having a conversation. If you are more of an interview style show, like my show is very much like yours. I may talk for a long time because I may want to tell the listeners, but also the guest, a particular story because I want them to come back at me with
Mhm.
something in that vein. And so I'm setting the stage. I may talk for 5 minutes. I try not to, and I
Right.
am always conscious of how much I'm talking. But I'm metering that myself at all times. So someone might say, "I want you to talk less." Well, did they watch the last 20 episodes?
Right.
Like is my ratio basically the same? And this one I talked a little more. Sometimes I have expertise in the area when I talk to the person I'm talking to, and they've
Yeah.
got academic expertise, but I have field expertise. And so that dynamic, okay, I'll give you an example. I had on Joe Pistone. Joe Pistone was Donnie Brasco, the operation from the movie. Joe Pistone was the actual dude. So he was actually Donnie Brasco when he was undercover. I was a spy. And so we're talking, and I'm like, yeah, what you're talking, and I wasn't an undercover spy, but our worlds are very similar. And so I was able to talk to him in a different way than other people. But a lot of the audience is like, we just want to hear Joe talk because they don't know me. They don't understand me. But the whole thing is when do you get a spy and an undercover FBI guy talking? And I think tomorrow I'll have a buddy of mine who's a FBI counterintelligence agent. Well, I'm an Army counterintelligence agent. And so he and I are going to talk a lot. And I'm not going to worry about ratio because we're just going to vibe hard off each other like we always do. And we're going to say things that nobody else can say because you don't get two counterintelligence agents talking every now and then. And so if someone comes to hear Joe Pistone talking to all his old stories, that's not what you're going to get from me, right? But if I got that critique, I'd be like, I hear you, but here's why I did this. And I'll say that in when I respond to the comments, when I do that, I'll say, understand, like this, you've got a spy and an undercover FBI agent talking. We're supposed to give you a different conversation. I'd love it if there was more Joe, but also I need Joe to have a totally different conversation than he's ever had. And Joe loved the conversation, by the way. He said afterwards, like, that was so refreshing to not have to just do all the work myself and to hear your point of view and to think about how I would handle. And so you can do these marvelous things even in spite of the critique because sometimes the critique they haven't done all of the work. I've listened to your show. I understand who you are and where you're at from that one time. But if I listened to 10 episodes, well, I'd have a lot better understanding of who you are. And so when someone wants to give you critique after 2 seconds, you know, all right, I can because I'm a professional. I can look and say, oh, you know what? You might want to consider doing these things or don't. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm just saying, if you want to, look a little more professional, this is an area where you might improve some things. That's it. Otherwise, who cares what someone else says? Are you doing it? Are you learning? Are you open to learning? Then great. Keep going.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this before I have to kind of wrap things up. Here's a prime example about that sort of story as well. I had a guest come on my show that had worked in the film industry on HBO. And this guy came on, and I basically, at the very beginning, kind of did my intro like I always do, introduced him. And for the 40 minutes straight, he talked for that 40 minutes. And I know some people are like, why did you let him talk for that long? I
Yeah,
majored in journalism, and one of the main things that we learned in that class was you never interrupt an interviewee. You're the interviewer, you're supposed to let them talk.
yeah,
Because if you interrupt
yeah,
it, so if you're in the middle of telling your story and you just interrupt them, that's considered very unprofessional and very rude. So I just kind of let him talk that whole 40 for the full 40 minutes because as a journalist, that was kind of what I was taught is that it's more but just let them talk. And that's kind
yeah,
of like how my show is. I want them to share their truth. And I was still fairly new at it, and he was probably one of the first few guests I had had on the show. So there was still a lot. I've done a lot of interviews since then, so I've kind of learned a little bit more about if they kind of get
sure.
long winded to kind of maybe help, but I don't interrupt them. I try not to because it's
Yeah.
considered very unprofessional and very kind of rude if you just interrupt them mid
I want to
sentence.
push back on that. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do the exact things. You're the boss of your show. There are norms for sure, and that is one of them. But if someone's reading off their script that they do for everybody else, now you owe the audience value. And you've got to jump in and say, I know that like these are the things you talk about quite commonly. I wanted to get a little deeper today and then see if they'll go on that ride with you. So I would say yes, don't interrupt as a norm and let people talk and everything else, but also be the boss of your show and be the. I mean, I just jumped in on yours, right? Like that's what I would do on my show. If someone and sometimes I let them talk for 40 minutes. Sometimes I do, right? And if I'm fascinated, that's kind of my get. Oh, I'm fascinated by this. Yeah, keep going. Tell
Yeah.
me more about that. I might say that, right? But I've done shows because sometimes I'll bring on a guest host or a second guest, and when they
Hmm.
get cooking, I go way back here, I just shut up and I let them cook, right? But there's
Hmm.
design. No, there's design in all of it, right? So I've got a mass comm degree, which is a journalism degree, and I learned all those things as well. But as you get seasoned, you understand when to do these things. And when people are like, "I'm going to talk too much," I'm like, "Don't worry, it's my show. I know exactly how to drive my machine. If I need a buddy, and I promise you I
Mm-hmm.
will. And so I don't be bound by that rule that you're actually doing that job. The person you talk to probably isn't a practitioner anymore and may not even know the podcast world, right? So I'm not saying that it's bad advice, but I'm saying understand that that's good advice and then take it when you need to and then ignore it when you don't want to. And that's good advice for anybody. And I'm not saying don't be professional, but figure out a professional way to break in and say, hang on. And here's a thing that I do, and I think this is helpful with regards to some of the stuff we're talking about. I'll I'll get to a point in this show where, and I'm not a gotcha guy, so I'm not trying to get anybody, but I am going to ask a hard, fair question. So I'll say, hey, Noah, I'm going to push back a little bit. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. And don't answer it if you don't want to, but I think you can take it, and I think you're going to be okay with it, right? So I've couched this thing and made it real safe and easy, and then I throw the hard question at him, you know. And so like one of the things I did, this is an example. I had Alex Vindman on the show. Alex Vindman is the guy that was on the phone when President Trump said the things to Ukraine that got him impeached, right? And Vindman was walking, and I'm an Army guy. And so Vindman was saying things that Army people would be like, nah, actually military people in general would be like, nah, I don't know. You're like, if you go against the boss, no matter who the boss is, whatever rank the boss is, if you do that publicly, you're not going to keep your job. You're just not. And so I know that before Alex does this thing, he talks to his brother because his brother's a twin. They're both colonels and they work in the same area, and he's a lawyer. And I know for sure Alex talks to his brother. So I'm like, I know you talked to your brother before you made this call because it's career defining. You know, and he talked about that. And I also know that you've talked about how, oh, I'm not going to have any money, but you're a retired colonel. And so you're going to be fine. And you're always going to get taken care of because of the steps you've taken. Why do you continue to talk about how you're not going to be able to get jobs and not going to have money and how you lost your job when you knew all of that stuff was going to be fine anyhow? And I was able to ask him that question because he knew he couldn't bullshit me because I know that game, right? And so he gave me a great answer, right? And there was no judgment from me, but I wasn't going to have him say things that were untrue and a little political without challenging that. And he was fine with it. He's actually never talked to me since then. But I don't mind that, right? That's his call. He gets to do that. But I did what I was supposed to do. You don't get to retire as a colonel and then say, I retired as a colonel. I'm not going to have any money. Like that guy's going to get paid all the time. He's always going to be fine. He makes 100 grand a year just being alive, right? So that's not something you get to complain about. He made a political choice, and so whether or not he wanted something else, he chose a different path that has consequences. And that's not an easy question. So don't worry about breaking in on people. Just do it in a way that's professional. And I think most people will get that it works in this vein. In other settings, absolutely not, right? Never shut up. Like when you're in a spy meeting, which is really like an interview. If it's my meeting, you don't jump in. If you're sitting on my shoulder and you're taking notes and you're the other agent, but today's my day, my meeting, you don't ever
Mm-hmm.
jump in. I've jumped in once in my career and I said, hey, let me do this. And then boom, right? So that's it. Like it's absolutely the exception. And so in a lot of settings, what you've learned is true, but I would say it's not as true as it used to be. It's not as true as it used to be. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you learn and take from this, but what's so funny is that I've always I've kind of wanted to do like a guest co-host thing, but and just be like, because I've always wanted to have like one person have like a debate, so I could just be like, oh, ooh, and then just have like all
Yeah,
these sound effects like, ooh.
yeah, yeah,
I'd be like the sound effect, but like ooh, and it'd be like, ooh, and then
yeah,
all these facial, you know, um, to kind of wrap things up a little bit,
yeah. Please.
I think you gave such great advice, but there might be some questions that we might not have gotten covered today. If people have questions, and you're more than welcome to also ask me, but if you want to ask Pete, since he's done 2,000 episodes, I've only done 40, 100. Obviously, Pete's going to know more. So if people have questions about podcasting or if they have an interest in it and they want some advice or tips, where can they find you on maybe reaching out to you and asking you? And also feel free to promote your social media and the podcast as well.
Sure, yeah. It's easy. Pete at breakitdownshow.com is my email if you have a question for me, for sure. And don't listen to Noah talk down about it. He's great. He knows what he's doing. He's done a lot of this already. And then if you want to reach me, just Pete A. Turner on social media. I'm on X most often, and I'll talk to you. That's not a problem. But you can watch my show on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in "Break It Down Show" or Pete A. Turner. It'll come up. You'll find it. You guys all know how to do that stuff. And thanks. And yeah, if you talk to me in the remarks and you're at least something north of shitty, then I'm probably going to engage with you. Then that's it. And if my show is your cup of tea, then great. You don't never know what you're going to find. You're going to get all kinds of amazing things that will blow your mind. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, Noah. I think you're doing great. This is a marvelous show, and everybody should do that. And bring in some co-hosts. Just a real quick story. I had on two very famous people in their world, and one of them had lost a friend who was in combat as a reporter. His name was Tim, and he nicked his femoral artery and he died. He bled out. And the other guy is a guy named Sebastian Younger, absolutely a famous person. You might know him by name, but if not, you've seen his work. He carried the survivor's guilt. Well, my buddy Josh wrote a book and he was shot and killed in Iraq. He was dead for 15 minutes and they got his ass back. So he's still alive today. 15 minutes he was dead. And so,
Wow.
you know what he died from? He nicked his femoral artery with a round, and so it killed him. And so, and these guys are going back and forth talking about death because Sebastian's most recent book was about it's called "In My Time of Dying," and he basically died, and only by just absolute luck of circumstance he survives, right? And so you have a guy who's been dead and is getting a PhD in being dead, and you have Sebastian Younger, who's this world-class writer, like the Hemingway of our time, really. And he's talking about his experience with death. And now these guys are talking about death. And you know me,
Yeah.
this guy, I shut up. But
Hmm.
because I shut up, Sebastian looked at Josh. Josh is the guy who died in Iraq. He says, "You know what? Do you mind me asking a question? And I don't want to dig up hard things for you, but um, what did Tim experience when he died? Because he's carried this weight around." And Josh looks at him and goes, "Oh, it was pure bliss. It was pure bliss. Death is bliss. It's a peak experience. Tim didn't suffer at all." And these guys had the exact same kind of injury, right? And it took this big weight, at least temporarily, off of Sebastian. I don't know if it's still off him today, but he carried this weight around for 20 years. And because I just shut up and let those guys talk, they did the most amazing thing right in front of my eyes. And I don't care if anybody ever sees that, but it's remarkable. And so things like that happen on occasion on my show. I think people will like it. But most importantly, everybody should support you. That just, I don't know how you do driving revenue, but put $5 in this man's pocket every month. That's a big difference maker. If you could do 10 or 15, great. Do it. Look at what he does. Appreciate what no, no, it's wonderful to talk to you. And I hope you get all the best. And I hope everybody supports you because you're doing such great things. And thanks for having me on the show.
I appreciate you so much for the kind words, and I wish I wish the same to your show. I mean, the continued success. I think I don't see you have any stops in podcasting, so I highly suggest that all my listeners go check out his show. It's the Break It Down Show. It's available wherever you get your podcast from. It's on YouTube and Apple, as well as probably on some other platforms as well. So wherever
Just go
you
to
get your
YouTube. Don't mess with Apple. I don't put anything fresh on Apple at all. Just YouTube.
So feel free to go check him out on YouTube. Break It Down Show is on there, so feel free to support him on there. I'll put his links in the description box below. I'll put his website as well as his social media accounts down there. So if you would like to continue his journey and support him, it'll all be down there for easy access for you guys. Um, also, you can follow me on social media as well. Instagram, TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, Noah's Podcast. So feel free to follow me on social media to get updates of the podcast on the social media side. And as always, listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcast from. It's on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's available where all the podcasts are. So feel free to go get the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Feel free to also subscribe so you'll be notified when new episodes come out. Appreciate you all for listening to today's episode. Be safe out there. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day and week, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.